stress up the groove, the energy a little different when the blessings accrue. Hey, who you talking to? Just know I ain't no regular fool. Could be anything in the world, but I can never be you because I.
Welcome back to That's Gonna Cost Ya. I'm Rachel, and today we're solo in my state worker fit. I literally look like a fucking state worker. I was trying to go for like cute profesh, you know what I mean? Like, got the silk pants, you got like the nice little, I think this is like Hugo Boss, like the nice little fucking fit. But then Izzy comes in and he's like, it's giving state worker. And you know what? It is. It is. It is. And that's fine because I really don't have a lot of professional clothes because for those of you that don't know, I'm an entrepreneur. So I'm working from home or out of an office, like a co-working office, not a real office, 99.999% of the time, or from like a coffee shop. So these are like repeat outfits. Like whenever I have to go somewhere and actually like be an adult, I'll potentially wear one of these if I have to meet with someone in a professional setting. Which, as those of you who might know, maybe don't, I was a spicy dancer for 4 years and I didn't tell a soul, so nobody knew. It was very, very private. I kept it to myself. I didn't tell anyone, all that good stuff. Most of you guys already know that. But I'm kind of in the process of pursuing something where I haven't, it's so out of bounds, so out of this world. I feel like most people would never guess or assume or even think that I would do something like this. But I'm keeping it to myself, kind of like how I did when I was dancing. But we have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to talk about because in the last couple of months since I've done a solo episode, I've crashed out. I have fucking contemplated everything in my life. I have had so many thoughts around like, what am I doing? And I feel like if you're in your like late 20s, going into your early 30s, you might be thinking the same thing because what are we doing? Right? I look around, I go out, I meet new people, and there's some of them that are younger than me, and it fucking makes me gag. Like, why? I used to remember when I was always the youngest person there. Oh my goodness, I have so much time. Oh my goodness, kid, you're going to do great. And then you get older and then another year passes, then another year passes, and you're like, am I in the same position that I was in 3 years ago, 4 years ago? Now, if you really think about it, most of the time, a lot of us, life is always changing. Change is inevitable. But sometimes when you're in the moment and maybe things aren't going your way or you're stagnant or maybe you're just comfortable, it's easy to think, fuck, I'm not doing enough, which is probably like valid. It's good. You might have that thought and it just means you want more for yourself. You want better, which is step number one. It's just like acknowledging that, right? And then it's kind of like doing, I guess you could say, a brain dump or just thinking like, what do I want? Like, what are the things that I want to pursue? What are my goals? What are my dreams? What is everything I said I wanted? Am I doing it? Am I pursuing it? And one of the things that's helped me the most whenever I am in that space, and the reason why I don't think a ton about why am I doing what I'm doing? What am I doing? Is because I'm constantly evaluating what I'm doing. So I've always had this process of where I will look at my goals every month and I'll set I'll set smaller goals around my bigger goals every week or every month, just depending. And I'm constantly forced to reevaluate that. So I'm always looking at my goals. I'm always looking at like the bigger picture. I'm always looking at what do I want? What am I doing? What is this habit for? What is it contributing to? I remember I started at the end of last year. I was like, bro, I need to fucking read more. Like I tell myself read every day. All I do is read one page out of a fucking book to say that I did it. That's the worst. It's like I'm cheating. I'm literally cheating myself. I'm cheating myself by reading one page out of a book every day. And it's not even like a book. It's like positive affirmations for the day, like, which is fine. But if I want to actually read more and learn more and obtain more, I need to be more consistent, right? So I read this book, Atomic Habits, towards the end of last year. And I feel like so many people have read it. I'm behind, I guess, in that sense. But I have read High Performance Habits by Brandon Burchard. I have that one on my bookcase, but I don't really remember those habits, to be honest, And when I read Atomic Habits, it was very, very applicable. And one of my favorite things that they talked about was being able to make things easy and make things attractive. So everyone thinks that these habits have to be super hard. They have to be so strenuous. You really have to get up and be fucking motivated. Well, guess what? Motivation only lasts so long. So what do you have to have in place? You have to have habits in place. And how can you get habits to actually stick? Well, you got to kind of make them a little easy. So for me, one of the things that I always struggled with, and I've been like this since I was a fucking kid, dude, like I shit you not, waking up early is probably one of my biggest downfalls. Is like, I love to sleep in. I don't even love to sleep. I just love to sleep in, right? I love to get my hours in. And I'm just a late night person. I've always been a late night person. Ever since like high school, I would always be late for school. I was fucking late all the time, dude. In college, I was on the cheer team. I almost got kicked off the team because I was late so much. Guess what time practice was? 9 a.m. 9 a.m. When you think about it, 9 a.m. is not fucking early. That's what time people start work. You know what I mean? But 9 a.m. as like an 18-year-old, I'm like, fuck, I need to sleep till 11. No. So I listened to this other podcast with Cody Sanchez. She's an entrepreneur. And she talked about something and it just really hit me. She's like, 99% of people's problems could be solved if they just wake up a couple hours earlier each day. 6 a.m. You could wake up a couple hours earlier than you normally do. 99% of people's problems will be fucking fixed. So what did I decide to do? I already work out. I'm already active. Why don't I go and get my workout in even earlier? Really set the tone for the day. Because what I've noticed is when I wake up and get straight to work, I'm thinking like, when should I work out? Oh, should I wait until I have this break? And then let's say I go and I'm like not dealing with a ton of work stuff. I go and work out. People are calling me, texting me. I'm trying to figure out like what I'm doing. But before everyone wakes up, what can I do? I can go and I can work out. I can set the tone for the day and I can have a very strict schedule. So how can I motivate myself to go to the gym? Well, I will fucking tell you. This is how I've decided to motivate myself to go to the gym and make things easy. Number one, if I'm going to wake up at like 5 a.m. every day to prepare to go to the gym at 6, well, that means I need to get some sleep, right? And I'm a late person. So instead of me trying to force myself to wake up early, why don't I just set my, why don't I just set it up to where I go to bed at 10? Because what I would do is I would stay up till 1 and be like, dude, I have to go to the gym at 5, to wake up at 5, go by 6. And then I would be so tired. And as soon as that alarm goes off, I'm like, I'll just do it tomorrow. It's easy to do that when you're not getting enough sleep. So instead of me trying to force myself to wake up early, I'm going to force myself instead to just go to sleep early. Does that make sense? And then waking up early is like no problem. It's just easy. My whole problem was I would go to sleep so late and I would tell myself, oh, you're going to wake up, no problem. But then when it's time to wake up, you don't want to wake the fuck up because you're tired, because you're not getting enough sleep. And at the end of the day, that's just detrimental. So I said, okay, I'm just going to go to sleep earlier. So I'm very strict about getting to bed at a certain time. Now, mind you, depending on work and like other obligations and things like that. Last night, for example, I didn't go to bed till 1. I do know that my alarm went off at 5:15 this morning. For whatever reason, I didn't hit that fucking alarm. So I wake up at 6 a.m. to a phone call from my friend that always comes to the gym with me on Friday mornings. Where are you? I just parked. Fuck. Those are the type of things where, okay, I went to bed at 1 because of work. Literally work. Was on a fucking Zoom call with somebody for almost an hour trying to figure out some software issue. Anyways, I digress. Long story short, I've decided that instead of me trying to force myself and motivate myself to wake up earlier, even when I go to sleep late and barely get any hours of sleep, I can only sustain that for so long. So instead, why don't I just set the intention? Okay, I'm going to finish my day, like everything in my day, basically, no later than 8 o'clock. At 8 o'clock is when I start to wind down. I can read, hang out with my dog. Maybe I can watch a show, something like that, to then go to bed by 10. Like that is the schedule. And most of the time I stick to it. But, just depending on work or depending on like a dinner with a friend or something, maybe I'll go to sleep a little bit later. But overall, it's pretty consistent. And one way that I have found myself going to the gym at like a reasonable time is by telling myself, ooh, I can't wait to wake up because then I can have one of my energy drinks, which I promise you, if you go to my gym, bro, I always have an energy drink. I don't give a fuck who says, oh, they're not good for you. Dude, this shit, like, this gets me going. This is like, I will go to the gym if I have my energy drink, period. I don't even think it really gives me energy anymore. I think it's just like a habit at this point. But when they say make it easy, make it attractive, it's attractive for me to want to get up, put on a cute little gym fit, go get my energy drink, and then potentially see a gym crush. Like, I have a couple gym crushes, and I'll probably never talk to them, and maybe they'll never talk to me. But you have to think about it. Like, it's attractive, the idea of like seeing them. And then let's say I don't see them at the gym. I'm already there anyway. So fuck it. Like, now I got to get the workout in. So things like that. And then I did the same thing with reading, is basically what I'm trying to say, is like, just when I'm sitting at my couch, my book is right there. It's easy to fucking open and start reading, opposed to me saying, oh, I'm just going to wait till I get into bed to start reading. And then I'm tired and then I fall asleep and then I don't read. Like, it's just little changes that I've made that I've seen a big difference in, into where it's been sustainable. Like, I've been doing this shit since the end of last year. It's already been 3 months. Like, it's consistent. It's habit at this point. It's like second nature. So it feels really good to have that. But at the beginning, it's tougher. And I do have to remind myself why I'm doing what I'm doing and what it ultimately is going to, create for me and how it's going to benefit me later on. But sometimes it doesn't even matter how much good I think I'm doing in my life, because I still have my fucking moments. And I had a moment recently where someone that I have gotten close with over the last year, like, I consider her a best friend at this point, someone who was literally at my house almost every single week. We've done a ton of things together. She came out to Mexico for my birthday. Like, someone that is a combination of these two girls that I know that I used to be really, really good friends with. So there was one girl that I've known for probably 10 plus years that I used to be super close with, but I'm no longer close with. And then another girl that I met during the time that I was dancing, that was like my best friend, like my best adult friend. Like, we did everything together, like literally everything. Such like a beautiful friendship that I no longer have. And I'd like to say it's because of them, but I've had my fair share of downfalls and I'm okay with admitting that. But I think ultimately I was the one to end those relationships because of the simple fact that they just weren't healthy. And that doesn't mean I don't love them. I literally saw one of them like less than a month ago and it was all love. Like, there was no like animosity. There was no bad blood. It was just like, oh, like, great to see you type of thing. We did have a little bit of a talk after because I did come off a little bit more standoffish, and it was for that specific reason. And I didn't have the same, I guess you could say, loyalty or urgency to be with or around that person as maybe I would have in the past. But the reason I say that is because these two girls that I was really close with, I'm the type of person where I feel like if I am really close with someone, even if I feel like they have their flaws and their faults and their own like things that they have to work through, I'm okay with being there for them until you disrespect me. And if you disrespect me, we obviously need to have a conversation. But if you continue to do it, at that point, I just need to let it go. And I think in both of the cases, I kind of allowed the disrespect for a little bit too long. Like, they disrespected me on multiple occasions and I still continue to let it slide. Or we had a conversation, they just kept doing it. They didn't learn from their mistakes. So therefore, I need to walk away. The reason that I even say this is because the girl that I'm really close with now is like a healed version of them. So like, I have a great relationship with this girl, and like, she's supportive, she's honest, she like loves me for me. We're nothing alike, but yet we love each other and we accept each other and we're just there for each other. And I've texted her before and I'm like, I'm really happy to have you in my life. Like, I'm grateful for you, because I feel like it is really hard to have adult like friendships and like something that's actually, you're really close to that person. And especially like women, I just feel like it can be harder to build those relationships. And I've had a lot of my female friends for years, like since I was in high school or even before then, like elementary school. So with this girl, I just was like, damn, like, we don't argue. We don't have any problems. And it's funny because the night that I fucking crashed out, before I crashed out,
What?
I was talking to one of my guy friends from Vegas and I was telling him about her. I was like, yeah, we definitely need to come out to DC. Like, it would be a lot of fun, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, oh, okay. Like, do you guys argue? I'm like, bro, we never argue. Like, we don't argue. Like, if we do, it's very calm and like cool and, classy. And he was like, oh, well, that's great. I fucking should have knocked on wood, because that same night we got in a fight for absolutely like the dumbest reason. Long story short, we were in an Uber. We were both fucked up, like so fucking drunk. She was taking an Uber somewhere and my house was on the way. But instead of them dropping me off at my house on the way, they had me go all the way there with them. And then I had to Uber all the way back instead of them just dropping me off on the way. But because I was drunk, I didn't articulate it that way. Instead, I started acting entitled. Like I basically was like, no, you need to fucking get off here. Like drop me off at my fucking house. Like just, well, I was just being rude. And she's like, dude, you're being really fucking rude right now. I'm like, I don't give a fuck. You need to take me out. Like literally just an entitled bitch, honestly. And we started screaming at each other. Like when I say screaming, I mean like literally at the top of our lungs screaming. Like just so unacceptable. And old Rachel would have probably gotten in like a full-on fight with the person. Like we're both going at it. We're both upset. We're both fucking saying things we don't mean. But on top of the fact that I didn't do that, which is like, there's no excuse to the action, but can I just acknowledge that I didn't like get in the fight? That's a win in a sense. It still shouldn't have happened, but either way, we're gonna acknowledge that. But then on top of that, we didn't see anything hurtful to each other. Like there was never like, bitch, and that's why you blah, 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 blah. Like, or, oh yeah, but you did this last week. Like nothing like that. It was literally us just going back and forth. You're being rude. No, you're being rude. You should have just wait till we're going to drop you off on the way back. I'm like, no, I want to go home right now. Like literally about the exact thing that we were arguing about. We kept it about that. There's nothing else. And she's like, you need to stop yelling. I'm like, then you need to shut up for 3 seconds. And I swear I counted to 3 for her to stop talking. And then I stopped talking. Like it was so immature, so stupid, like so stupid, but it was a big deal. And we argued. She got dropped off. I came home. I calmed down. And I basically texted her and I was like, hey, I'm sorry for how I treated you. I love you. And her phone was already dead. So I knew she wasn't going to get back to me. But the next morning, she never texted me. But she didn't block me. And she didn't like unfollow me or anything. So I was like, okay, well, we'll see. Tried to FaceTime her and call her. She didn't answer. And then at that point, I just left it alone. Because I was like, you know what? She sees that I called her. She sees that I texted her. If she needs her space, I'm going to give her her space. And if she doesn't want to be friends with me anymore, then I have to accept that. Because at the end of the day, everybody has their own interpretation of things. That was the biggest fight we'd ever been in, and we've been close for about a year. And I don't know how some people will react to a situation like that. If maybe she's been through things in the past where she had a similar situation and it just didn't end up well and it's bringing back memories. Like I have to acknowledge that, and I have to accept that if she chooses not to be friends with me. I've had situations in Vegas where I can come off very aggressive to some of the girls because let's say, for example, there was this girl that I was actually pretty cool with. Like we weren't super close, but we hung out and like we knew a lot of the same people. So there was this girl that I also was kind of working with in Vegas a bit, and super sweet girl. Like we got along really well, just good vibes overall, but she was kind of new to dancing. So we had went to this like private party and nobody was really running. Like nobody was really leading the way. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to make it my mission to make sure everybody gets paid. And like, I need to make sure everything's up front, blah, blah, blah. So of course, because I have to be the one to ask for the money, like I'm going to be the one that seems a little bit more aggressive in a sense. It doesn't have to be that way, but maybe that's just how I came off. And she was just very like, no, like, let's just trust them. Trust them. Like, absolutely fucking not. Because in an industry like dancing, there's little to no rules. Like, you better get your fucking money up front. And that's rule number 1. If there is a rule, that's the rule. That's the rule number 1 is get your fucking money up front. And she just was very like, oh, it's fine. Let's have fun. No, because I promise you, I'll be a lot meaner if we don't get paid. And because of how aggressive I came off, and I can't even really put into words exactly how I went about it, but I just remember kind of telling her like you guys need to fucking just let me do what I'm doing and then we can talk about it after. Like I definitely came off a little bit more like aggressive, but she was like, I don't really want to be around someone she didn't tell it to me. She told it to like a friend that I have. She's like, yeah, I just really don't see myself associating with someone that kind of like operates like that. Like it just came off like a bit aggressive, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, yeah, it was a little bit of like a sting, I guess. But my personality can be a little bit strong, especially when I'm trying to fight for other people. Because at the end of the day, if y'all aren't going to fight for yourselves, like who else is going to do it? You know what I mean? And I don't have to. I could just go and fight for myself. Then you're really going to hate me, right? So it's like I'd rather be a little bit more of a bitch than let people walk all over me. And that brings me back to maybe my friend, because she's never seen me in this capacity, it may turn her off and her be like, I don't want to be friends with someone like that. But I do feel as if I've shown signs of like who I am. Like at the end of the day, I am who I am. We just haven't been in any fights. We haven't been in any big arguments. She knows that I can take it to that level. She just didn't know I would take it there with her, which I shouldn't have, number one. But it also brings me back to thinking like every single person in my life, every single person that's very, very close to me, that's known me forever. My best friend, Stephanie, since 3rd grade. Richie, who's known me since like 2015. All my other friends that have known me for years back. I have probably crashed out and been in a fight with every single person that's close to me. Like every single person. Not like a physical fight, but like an argument, like an actual like moment where we're both really upset at each other and don't talk for days or whatever. Every single person, anyone that I can really think of, honestly, that knows me really, really well, I would say that if that didn't happen, it was going to happen eventually. Like, and not to say that I don't have the ability to not take it to that level. I feel like I can contain myself, but I still have my moments. Like, I do feel like I've come a very long way from all the other situations that I've been in that I've probably never even spoken about. But that one, it doesn't matter. Like, even if I've come a long way, I shouldn't have done it. And I had to be willing to accept whether or not she was still going to fuck with me after. So I just kind of gave it time. I didn't want to like bombard her with shit because at the end of the day, you either mess with me or you don't. You know, like either way, if you want to talk about it, great. More than happy to talk about it. And she didn't unfollow me. So there was a little bit of like, I think we'll be okay, but I'm not going to get my hopes up. She ended up sending me like an Instagram reel like a week later. And then she sent me another one like the same day. And I was like, okay. So now she's kind of coming around a little bit because she would send me reels like when we would be talking every day. And then she texted me this, dude. And she said, I love you and miss you, even though you're a crazy fucking bitch sometimes. And that made me really happy that she texted me that because it just made me be like, okay, like she's willing to talk. I understand I did something wrong. She knows I tried to get a hold of her and, you know, she accepts me for me. It doesn't mean my actions are excusable. They're not. But that's someone that I feel like I can have in my life for a long time. Because if they can't see me at like my absolute worst, well then, well, what are friends for, right? Like they're the ones that kind of accept you for who you are. And like no matter your faults, they'll still be there to try to help you through it, right? And we saw each other again like a week later, but we haven't actually had a conversation to like go and sit down and talk about it. And I think that's really important because the girl that I was really close with when I lived in Vegas, we had a situation and we kind of just like moved past it and never really talked about it and sat down and had a conversation. And because we didn't, something else came up and I felt resentment, like way more resentment than I should have. And I was a lot quicker to cut things off officially forever than, you know, work it out again because we never talked about the previous situation. And I think that communicating, no matter who it's with, like family, friends, your partner, like handling it as soon as possible when you both are ready is so key because if not, like let's say me and her hang out again tonight and we haven't talked about the situation and we have like a repeat of the previous night, like the chances of us really not talking for a longer time or even again are pretty high because it's like, damn bitch, you did it again? Like, fuck, you know? So I think that just having a conversation and communicating how you're feeling and like what's going on with you is big. And I really didn't tell anyone about this. I think I told like one of my good friends who I know, like he knows the situation. He was kind of talking to me about it. And I just kind of got out how I felt. Like I love her so much and she doesn't deserve that treatment. And if she chooses not to fuck with me, then that's fine. But I would rather know now than 10 years down the line where I crash out and find out she really isn't here for it. You know what I mean? Like she's not here for I don't want to say the ride. That's not a very fun ride, but she's not here for like me, like accepting of me, you know? But I feel like people usually can tell the type of personality that I have and how like strong I can come off sometimes, but it can be surprising to those who are a little bit softer, and I don't blame them. But that's something that happened where I had like a big reflection where I was just like, I need to be better. And I even put in like my 2025 bingo card. I said, don't crash out after 221 because it was on February 21st. Like, don't crash out. But it could be a lot worse, bro. Like, it could have been so bad. I've had nights where there's been like fist fights, where bottles are thrown, cops are involved. Like, shit gets fucking wild, bro. Like, it's crazy. So, being able to come home, lay in my bed at the end of the night, eat some fucking cookies, hang out with my dog. Yes, I crashed out, but nobody's hurt. Oh, we're lit. You know what I mean? So it's like that is probably the most mild crash out I've had in a very long time. So shout out to her for forgiving me. Love her. But yeah, you know how I talk about how I'm getting older, like 27, getting into like end of my 20s, early 30s. I'm always like, fuck, I'm really an adult, but I still feel like such a kid. So I'm going through this process right now, and I don't know how much I can talk about it because I don't know if I can talk about like their screening process, but I wanted to get more involved in volunteering. And I did some crazy shit, bro. I did a couple things. So I asked one of my good guy friends who's really involved in nonprofits. I was like, hey, like what nonprofits do you recommend? Like if I wanted to volunteer, what do you recommend? He's like, honestly, you could just go volunteer at like a YMCA, like, and I'm like, actually used to go to that YMCA, like Boys and Girls Club when I was a kid. So I'm like, that might be nice. So I reach out to them and then I go and I've applied for like a few different volunteer organizations just to see if I could be of assistance. Because one of my long-term goals is to have my own organization. Like that is something that I want. And I'm like, I have this idea in my head and like I know where I need to be in my life to obtain this and start this, but there's no reason why I can't start getting experience now. Like what's stopping me from getting it? Am I just going to wait until I have all the resources necessary to start this and then not even know what to do once I start it? No. So I'm like, might as well at least get some experience and figure out what topics I'm most passionate about and just get involved, right? And make the connections because that could be helpful to me later on. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start volunteering. So I hit up the YMCA for volunteer opportunities and they're like, we need an immediate head coach for soccer. You guys, the last time I played soccer, I was 6 years old. I took it. I said, all right, yeah, I'll be the soccer coach. Fuck it. I didn't say fuck it, but I was like, yeah, whatever. I mean, not whatever. I said yes. So I just volunteered myself to be a soccer coach to a bunch of 5 and 6 year olds. Obviously, I'm going to learn the rules. I'm going to learn like what I need to do, duh. But that was something where I was like, let me just take it by the reins. Now, that is not why I brought this up. I brought it up because another volunteer opportunity I have, and that's only for 6 weeks. So it's not that much time. It's only like a 6-week thing. But something that I'm going to be doing more long term is I'm trying to volunteer for the not boys and girls, Big Brother, Big Sister program. So it's like a mentorship program where you're usually matched with like a younger kid, anywhere from I think like 8 to 16. And you're basically kind of like a mentor to them. And they put you through a rigorous screening process, my guy. Like they have you on an interview for 2.5 hours. But before that, they have you on like a pre-vetting call for like an hour. Then they do a background check and they do like more training and things like that. So I just finished the interview process for it. And they go into all different types of topics about you, about your family, about your friends, about your life, about your beliefs, about your goals, like everything about you. And it makes you think so much about what you want. Who are you? How were you raised? How did that affect who you are today? How did that impact like your ability to talk to people and, be a leader or whatever the case may be, whatever it is. And one of the questions that they asked, the very last topic they got into on the last part of the interview today was family. How were you raised? Like, what was that like growing up? Are you close with your family? How would you say that how you were raised and the lessons that you learned have shaped who you are today? And it's funny because it's like me over here, this 27-year-old trying to become a mentor to the youth, but still I feel like I'm in my youth. I still feel like a kid sometimes. I still feel like a little girl, like I have my fears and I have my dreams and I still have my immaturities, but I'm very responsible. It's like I think it's important to keep both of those and hold them really tightly for as long as you can, because sooner or later that youth is like probably really going to be gone. At least to a certain extent. So one of the questions that they asked was, how would you discipline your kids? Basically, because they asked about how were you disciplined as a kid? And I was raised by my dad and my grandma, but mostly like I lived with my dad. And I saw my mom about twice a year when I went back to come visit. And she asked, like, how did your dad discipline you? And I'm like, well, like, just like most parents would, right? Like physically and verbally. Like most parents, I feel like most parents put their hands on their kids. At least when I was growing up. Like I feel like that's common, especially during my dad's time. Definitely getting his ass beat. Me, it's a little bit different, guy on girl. Like my dad was physically abusive, but not to the point where I'm going to school with black eyes and shit. Like that's just like that. To me, that is excessive. That's unnecessary for sure. I think discipline is important, but it was tougher. Like me and my dad had such a difficult relationship growing up. Even when she asked me that, I hesitated for a second. I was like, how did he discipline me? I'm like, I like didn't know how to answer it because I've never had to answer that question like in so long. And if I ever do bring up anything about me and my dad's relationship as a kid, I kind of make a joke out of it. Like I like joke around like, oh yeah, like I just don't really talk about it. So it makes you talk about it. And I didn't really get emotional either because I had such a rocky relationship with my dad. We've been through so much together, but we're so close now. I love my dad. He's so much different than he was when I was a kid. And I think he understands that he was wrong in certain situations, but I also understand that I did certain things that made it harder for him to want to change and be good because of how much stupid shit I did. I guess that doesn't excuse the fact of like, his disciplinary actions, but maybe, shit, I think anyways, long story short, they asked, how would you discipline your kids? And I'm like, immediately, first of all, anyone that knows me knows I don't want to have kids, like me personally. And I don't know if that's going to change. I think that, never know. But I had a hard time answering that because I'm like, well, I'm not really considering having kids. So it's a little harder for me to think about that and like tell you what I would do. But what I can tell you I would probably do is I would focus more on communication and instead of accusing someone of what they did and assuming, I would ask and I would try to learn and understand. And I feel like that's such like the pageant answer. Oh, well, why did you do that? Well, do you think that that was a good idea? I don't know how I feel about that until I actually am put in the position, but I know for sure I wouldn't put my hands on the kid, right? Right? I don't think I would. Maybe we should. Bro, that's such a tough topic. Do you put your hands on your kid? So, hold on, because I was listening to Ty Lopez, and anybody that knows I love Ty. He's always spitting fucking facts. And he talks about how there is science behind if you actually like physically discipline your kid, it could potentially have better effects than if you weren't. Now, please don't quote me. Please don't fucking quote me. But he said that a lot of these articles, because of how much controversy there is around whether you should put your hands on your kids or not, there is a lot of data and a lot of articles and a lot of information on the web that has been scraped off. And they're saying like, oh, you shouldn't put your hands on your kids. It's not like the correct thing to do. It doesn't serve a purpose or, as good of a purpose as if you were just to have a conversation and discipline them other ways. But I'll leave that up to the parents. I'm no one to speak about it, but I only bring it up because the question was asked to me. And even if somebody isn't a parent, it's important to think about how you're going to fucking raise your kids, because I feel like enough people don't think before they do, right? Like even me, like on that interview, they're like, how would you do this? How would you go about that? What do you want to do with this? I'm like, fuck, these are good questions. I feel like I know myself really well, really well. But sometimes questions are pegged where you don't know. You're like, I never really thought about that. And you have to then get to know yourself even more and go deeper and be like, well, if I did this, would that make sense? Like, is that the route that I want to go? Is that the person I want to be? So I think there's always more to explore. And I think that those are super important questions to ask. Because like I said, enough people don't ask themselves these questions. They just do things without thinking about the fucking consequences. And that's that immaturity. That's like that carelessness. That's that spontaneousness, if you may. But I think getting to know yourself more and putting yourself in these positions to do different things, to grow, to learn, it's imperative, honestly, because now it's making me think maybe I should ask more people, like, how do you go about disciplining your kids? Because even though I had that situation with my dad, I feel like I've grown from it. I feel like I'm healed from it. I feel like me and him have a great relationship. I'm not resentful towards him at all. But that's not always the case with other kids that have maybe gone through what I've gone through. And even though I had to talk about that with her, I really didn't feel any type of way about it. It was just the way of me wording it. I just didn't know how to say it. Like, yeah, he was abusive, but I love him. Like, what? So I don't know. But one thing he did teach me, because they said, oh, what's one of, and for anyone out there that maybe has a tough relationship with your parent, maybe let's just say, for example, you grew up and your parent had an addiction and you felt like maybe they neglected you when you were younger. And I have a lot of friends that have had parents that had addictions where they neglected them or they weren't around, or, they chose the drug or the substance over their child and all those different things. Or maybe they felt abandoned. And now they have this relationship with their parent where they still resent them, or there's like conversations that were never had. Maybe their parent is clean now. Their parent is involved in their life more. Their parent wants to be there for them, but they still have, even though they have a good relationship, right? When push comes to shove, they still have their own traumas and they have those things that they haven't spoke about to anyone, even to the parent. So it's like when you have these internal conflicts, I think it's super important to be able to talk about it, because you talking about it and you kind of getting that off your chest and seeing, why am I dealing with this trauma now? I'm like, I'm deflecting on other people what I was given and how I was treated when I was younger. And I'm doing that to other people. And I felt like, especially me when I was younger, my home life, it would for sure show up in my personal life because I was constantly rebelling, constantly getting in trouble, acting out, like just everything out of spite for my dad. At least I feel like I was, because why else would I do that? Right? Like, yeah, I'm young, I have hormones, blah, blah, blah. But if I had a better home life, maybe that wouldn't have been the case. You just got to go deep with yourself. You have to figure out what the fuck is wrong with you and how you're going to be better. Because if not now, then when? If not you, then who, right? So it's like, if you want to be better and you want your kids to be better and you want your relationship to be better and you want your work life to be better, then you gotta tighten up. And that leaves me to my last quote that I want to read you guys from a book that I just finished, literally, 2 days ago. It's Stephen A. Smith. Any of you guys that know Stephen A. Smith, he is a huge ESPN personality. He's a sports show host, or he's a talk show host for sports and around sports. So I read this book, and I've already read 2 biographies like back to back. So it's time for me to just go into something next that's like skill related and business related. But these have been really helpful because I love learning about successful figures that come from certain circumstances and they've created who they are today. And they've overcome a bunch of scenarios. And I try to find myself in each book that I read and relate to it. And one of the ways that I do feel like I relate to Stephen A. Smith is he's very controversial and he's very rebellious because he loves to debate and he loves to do things that most people don't do, right? He definitely stands out. He doesn't fit into any specific box. And because of that, he gets reprimanded at work a lot. So imagine working for one of the largest companies in the world, ESPN, who, by the way, is owned by Disney. So you're working for fucking Disney over here, Mickey Mouse, okay? You're working for Mickey fucking Mouse, and you're over here starting fights with Aisha Curry. You're over here fucking, didn't mean to, obviously, not intentional, but over here arguing with fucking Aisha Curry. Who else did he have problems with? He got like reprimanded at work for a few other things. He literally just got an argument with LeBron James because LeBron thought he was talking badly about his son. It's just like this man, he says what he believes and what he thinks. And because of that, it's a lot of backlash. And sometimes because of politics in the workplace, he has to be kind of pushed out or disciplined in a sense. And it reminds me of me because I would always do things a certain way. And I always felt like it's my way or the highway, or always just had like this kind of chip on my shoulder, I guess you could say, at work or with anything that I do. And I feel like because of that, sometimes I can come off as the villain or I can come off as like the problem child. But that's not the intention. The intention is to really just get shit done and be the best at what I do. So let's go ahead and read what he kind of ended the book with. And I really enjoyed it. So he basically talked about how he likes to push beyond the boundaries in the sports world and just disrupt. And he talked about this quote, "A lion raised in captivity has never been in the wild." That was by Bishop T.D. Jakes, once explained on Oprah's show. And he said, all of his experiences have been in the cage. If all of his experiences have been in the cage and that would be his natural habitat to him, then why do they lock the cage? They lock the cage because even though his experiences do not validate it, his instincts tell him there's something else out there. And the reason why so many of us are frustrated today is that we're pacing around in a cage of a job or a life or a situation that has limited us. We may not have the background for it. We may not have the training for it, but our instincts tell us, I belong out there. Finally, Stephen A. Smith says he's learned that he belongs out there betting on yourself, taking chances on yourself, fearlessly pursuing your goals and wherever it takes you, knowing that in your heart, the worst thing you could do to yourself is not try, especially now, since you know that there's nowhere you should go alone. He said, in my mind, God can stop me. Self-inflicted mistakes can stop me. Stupidity and immaturity can stop me, but fear isn't part of the equation any longer. So I'll end it with that. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. And for those of you out there that are parents that want to talk a little bit more about disciplining your child and how you discipline your child, please go ahead and send us a message on any of the platforms. That's going to cost you. And we'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.
Calm down before you stress up the groove. The energy a little different when the blessings accrue. Hey, who you talking to? Just know I ain't no regular fool. Could be anything in the world, but I can never be you because I stand tall like I'm on my tiptoes. Baby, you think a little